Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 224, recorded live December 1st, 2014. It is the Christmas season. You can tell I've got my hat on. I'm feeling very festive, very got the Christmas spirit in me and all that. And I am your host and also one of Santa's little helpers, Todd Klindt. Before we go any further, though, I got to give my buds at Rackspace a shout out. You can go to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out all about the great SharePoint offerings that we have there at Rackspace. And you can sign up for a 45-day free trial of our multi-tenant thing. You'll get an email that got sent to you from a script that I wrote, so that's pretty cool, right? I mean, that's almost like a personalized email. It's so close, so close. But you can sign up for that. We got all kinds of SharePoint products, sharepoint.rackspace.com, all kinds of great stuff there. Check all that out for your SharePoint needs. I'm seeing some chatter in the chat room. It sounds like I might have messed up the number. So this is Netcast number 225. I copy every week. I copy my intro from week to week, and I'm going to say 88% of the time I forget to update the number or the date. And so right now the date in my intro is November 17th. So that tells you how long it's been since I updated it. So if I ever screw the date or the time up, that's why. And I'm going to blame that all on Lori because she's the producer. She should fix all that. And so I don't know what to say. I'm just going to have to dock her wages or something. You guys in the chat room, you can figure out what her the appropriate punishment should be for that. Speaking of the production notes, so the good news is I got the MP3s out really quick last week. The bad news is I forgot to publish the blog post. Had everything done fairly early and then just kind of spaced it off, screwed it up. But hopefully that will be better next week. So we'll talk about that later. But there's some process stuff I could do better. But the MP3s went out right away. So again, if you want to get this the earliest, subscribe to the MP3 feed or subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/ToddKlindtNetcast. And then as soon as I drop that video up there, you'll get an email. You would have also gotten an email when I went live tonight, so you wouldn't miss out on all this fun and frivolity. So that's a great way to follow that. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, and I tweet all this stuff out as well. So we will start with the topics. Speaking of the production notes, we moved over to the Google Hangouts bit a while back, and that was to make the production easier and the streaming easier. But another one of the things that I wanted to do was bring people in. So everybody say hello to my sidekick.
Hello, sidekick.
So that's one of the things we can do. So this week, Shane's going to be hanging out, just kind of following along. We practiced this earlier today, and it worked pretty well. So that's one of the great things that we're going to do. And I'm kind of trying this out. I want to bring guests in more often, but I had to let Shane do it first because he would have cried had I not. So we'll bring Shane in tonight, and then if it works out well, we're going to bring some other folks in. So.
You know what I'm realizing is I'm making all these funny faces as you're talking, that because of the way the whole system works, no one sees my funny faces. So I guess just punctually.
Yep. This is all very fun. We played with this a little bit this afternoon. We've got some stuff to talk about later, but this is the first time we've ever done one like this, so it's a little different. And we talked about it this afternoon about how we were going to do it, if he was just going to be in the whole time or just kind of do like an interview thing. I decided to take video on him. It's the Christmas season, so he's just going to be here the whole time. We're just going to rip on each other, and it'll be a good time.
It'll be like a normal Monday night, you know. It will be a little weird, though. You know, we had such chemistry when we're on stage together, but there's a couple of seconds of lag here. I try to take a little effort not to, you can't reach over and tug my leg when I get it wrong. So hopefully this works out.
Yep. So I'm looking in the chat room. Looks like everything's going. I'm going to see if anybody. So Shane is in the chat room. He is the man in the green room, or the guy in the green room, or whatever. That was Shane. Guy in the green room, yeah. So I could tell that was him.
I didn't want to mess it all up. Uh-oh. Someone says they don't think my headset mic is not working. Does that not sound correct?
So it sounds kind of distorted and loud to me, but I don't know how it sounds to everybody else.
Well, let's see. I'll press some buttons and see what it does. But I thought it was good.
All right. Lori says a little echo, but not overly loud.
Well, and I got Scuba behind me, so I got to make sure that, don't get any background noises. You don't want to hear any of that. So.
The dumb alone is probably just leaking into the room.
I switched mics. I don't know. If it doesn't get any better than that, then... So
I think you weren't using your headset mic before.
Oh, well, how rude of me. What kind of guest am I?
Because now there's a whole lot less background noise and a whole lot more of your voice.
Oh, well, is that good or bad?
It could go either way. If you start stinking real bad, I'll just have you tag Scuba in.
Gotcha.
So for those of you that haven't been privy to this before, Scuba is the name that we have for Shane's brother-in-law, Jeff, and he also works at Rackspace, also works on the SharePoint team, and is the subject of much of my ridicule almost on a daily basis. So, and he's apparently over Shane's house tonight, so he will.
And Scuba is very excited to hear that you guys, I guess, have rejoined forces. So he's expecting a lot of cool stuff from you. Apparently, a lot of automation, a lot of upcoming show topics. I'm guessing.
Yep. Yeah. So I spent some time, and we're going to talk about this next. Spent some time helping Shane with some of his Hyper-V stuff, but then decided to go back to the SharePoint team, and that's where Scuba's at. And I think nobody talks to Scuba. I think nobody likes Scuba, and so I'm like the only person that pays him any attention. So once I left, nobody talked to him, and now that I'm back and I'm mocking him all the time, he puts ice cubes in his coffee, things like that. So I think he's just glad for the attention. Yeah,
well, I think the ice cubes in his coffee have stopped. Apparently, he likes to eat oranges now, though. The name he wanted me to say orange, so there you go. That was a gift for her.
So I appreciate Naomi calling that out. Shane's speech impediment.
I'm from Georgia. I don't want to hear about it.
Yep. So Mark, more ridicule than I heap on Shane? Absolutely. I think I've almost made Scuba cry before. And that was like one of my checklists, make a grown man cry, and I almost had it. Scuba's really not a grown man. He's man boy-ish, but I would have counted it.
Yeah. Poor Scoob.
So Shane, one of the things we first wanted to talk. I guess before we go, that one thing I've got in my notes is, we changed all this, and you've done this solo a couple of times now since we've moved to the Hangouts. But in talking to like Jonathan and a couple other people, I've had a bunch of people ask me how this whole thing works. I assume that so they can do their own podcast and not do it this way. I assume that's the reason they want to know. But to you folks in the audience, in the chat room and all that, would a how I make the sausage episode be interesting? Just what software I use and all that. Is that something that you guys would be interested in? Be curious to see. Shane, what do you think of the process that we use right now?
I think it would blow the... Well, so I guess the how do you make the sausage would have been more interesting about 2 months ago. This version, I was pretty shocked when I actually hosted the first Google Hangout one, and it's like, wait, you just kind of pick it up and go. I mean, I think it'd still be an interesting show, but the stuff that we used to go through to get two machines working at once and get the recordings to go, that was chicken bones. And I mean, it was like every time we did it, we screwed up, and people had to be thinking, man, these guys suck. But it was really just that hard to get that stuff to work. So
yeah, the mirrors and the smoke and all that, it was a lot of work. I don't think people appreciate how much we suffered for our art. I think what it comes down to.
Well, I think one of the interesting topics, I would even maybe watch this 2-minute segment of the episode.
Oh, you're very gracious. Thank you.
Is the how you do the lighting and stuff in your office. I think maybe kind of a step back and just kind of go through, how you're doing all the stuff in your office. I think it is pretty neat. Clearly I do a lot of video chats with a lot of different people, and your office is right up there with just about the best of them. So.
It's been a long time coming, and so that's good to know. And that's one of the things that I would cover, because it's part of the stuff that Jonathan and I talked to. Naomi in the chat room, I've been trying to get her to do a podcast like this, and so her and I've had this conversation. But a shout out, and he's in the chat room right now, Jack. He's kind of the one that helped me with the lights. I knew that I needed some lights, but I didn't know what to get, and I didn't want to spend any money and all that. So Jack bought a bunch of lights and gave them to me and said, use these. Your lighting sucks, and that's kind of where all this came from. So he gets a shout out for that.
Well, no doubt. Pat on the back for Jack there. And hey, Todd, you're cheap and you suck. So just turn these on.
He did. It was I think it was the last SharePoint conference. He brought a bag of lights and stuff to the SharePoint conference and gave them to me and said, "Take these home, make it work."
Now, does he also have to send you a check for the electricity they consume every month?
No. So Ames, we burn our trash. We have our own power plant. We actually have 2 power plants in town. So we burn trash, small children, all that kind of stuff. So our power is very cheap here.
Gotcha. Well, in SharePoint, Tim wants to know how long did it take for you to do your hair and makeup. So I think you should talk about the foundation you used to keep the glare off that forehead.
Yeah. So when we tested this afternoon, Trevor Seward was watching it and he kept commenting on the shine on my forehead, and I got all self-conscious and I cried myself to sleep because I take my afternoon nap right after that. So that's why I have the Santa hat now on to hide my shame.
When I wasn't going to point out the crow's feet, but since you've hidden the other share.
Yep.
All right.
Makeup will be next, but it looks like in the chat room there looks like to be some interest in that. So I'll probably put that together. But yeah, I think there's some technical stuff, the lighting, the sound, the Hangout bits, all that, and I think there's still some meat there. I think there's some value, and I base that on the fact that I had to tell Jonathan how to do it about 47 times. So either it's fairly complicated or Jonathan's just not very smart.
So I figured it out from half of an email you scratched together. I'm just throwing it out there.
Typed about half of an email. Most of it I typed with my nose on the way out to vacation.
Yeah, well, I think also, don't discount the production stuff for getting it up to YouTube and, iTunes and all that. Sorry, not YouTube. YouTube's automatic, but the iTunes stuff. I think that would also, might be a separate show altogether, but I think that would be kind of fun too.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because I'm actually having some fights with that right now, so I can't. I don't think I could do a good job explaining it. So one thing, you have a Windows phone, and I know some of the other folks in the chat room have a Windows phone. If you go to the podcast app and search for my name, you can't get my podcast from there. And the reason for that is because in Windows Phone 8, there was a place where I could submit my feed. And that's why it worked in Windows 8. And I actually had a guy's name. Rob Greenlee was the guy's name. Sent him an email, said, here's my feed. He added it, and everything worked great. When they updated to Windows Phone 8.1, they made it all Bing back-ended. So there's no repository of feeds anymore. So when you search for something in the Windows Phone 8.1 podcast app, it does a very specific Bing search in the background. And then with the results that it gets, it looks for a feed, an RSS feed on those results, and that's where the podcasts come from. For whatever reason, when you search for my name in Bing, the first thing that comes up is the posts feed for my blog. And it's the actual feed. It's not the page. It's the feed, and there's no RSS feed for my MP3s in there. So I've signed up for Bing. I signed up as a webmaster for the toddklindt.com domain, and for a month now I've been going in there fighting with my Bing stuff, trying to get that to work, so that people can go into the app and search for me. You can't do it.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So I've got a page. Lori put a thing in the notes for me. I've got a page that explains how all that works. And I still can't figure it out. But it shows you the query string, and sure enough, if I put that query string in Bing, it's exactly the same results as if you search for my name in the podcast app. But it just other podcasts that I've been on show up, but I can't get it working. So,
sorry, I was gonna say you missed Snoopy in the background. Snoopy was trying to help you look for it, but he's gone now.
I was just gonna mention that I think I was talking to Lori or somebody last week, and we were saying it's been a while since he's crashed the Netcast, and I heard him knocking stuff over. So I'm surprised like the lights didn't fall over and something like that. But
yeah. Well, yeah. So speaking of Snoopy, I was flipping through YouTube trying to my 5-year-old and 2-year-old now make YouTube videos. Long story, not going to go there. But when I was flipping through all that stuff, I actually ran into Snoopy's video, and I actually watched it, the one we did from SP Tech or SPC. Yep. It was pretty ridiculous, but I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. So for those of you, Lori, another note for the thing there. For SPC, one of the things that Microsoft did was had speakers put out videos promoting their different sessions, and so Shane and I put these ridiculous videos together where we played different characters, and Snoopy. His name's really not Snoopy, but Shane can't pronounce his real name. His real name is Oranges. No, his real name is Ingve. But so we put these great videos together. I put a green screen up behind me, and we added these costumes, and Ingve did a cameo as my cat.
What kind of name is Ingve? I just don't understand.
Ingve, and it is a Swedish name.
Yeah, uh-huh.
So, the history of the name Ingve is I got Ingve from a buddy of mine. Ingve was a farm cat, was destined for a very short, cold life, and probably would have ended up as a pile of raccoon poop somewhere had I not rescued him. But so I got him from this friend of mine, and the way that I know this friend is because we bonded over music, and one of our favorite guitar players is a guy named Yngwie Malmsteen. So I named Yngwie the cat after Yngwie Malmsteen.
So wait, I get this right. You and a dude listened to some songs together. You had another dude that you both liked a lot, and so you named your cat after that dude.
There's a lot of dudes involved, but I think you got the gist of it, basically, yeah.
I think I'm probably jealous. All right, moving on.
So one final thing. So I got Yngwie like a year and a half ago, something like that. And my buddy and I, we text all the time, twirl our hair and stuff like that. So my buddy texts me and says, I just saw Yngwie's brother Frank. He is one big cat. So when I read that text, I was thinking he meant the actual guy, Yngwie, and I'm like, Yngwie Malmsteen's got a brother Frank? This makes no damn sense at all. And I'm reading this text and I'm talking to Jill. I'm like, does this make any sense? And then as I said it out loud, I'm like, oh, big cat as in like an actual animal, a cat, not like slang for a cool guy. Like, oh, this makes much more sense.
Yeah, you and your boyfriend should connect better. But
we have communications issues.
Clearly, you put his name here in the chat room, and I'm sticking with Snoopy. I can't even. YNGWIE is not a word. I've tried it in Scrabble. It doesn't work.
You don't get any words with friends. It gets kicked out. You can't submit it.
Yeah. Sorry, Scrabble. Words with friends, words by post, or whatever the Windows Phone generic version is.
So that's him. So yeah, it's. I'm glad he swung by. Glad he got to say hi to everybody. All right. So Shane, the next thing in the notes I have is Shane's crap. So would you like to tell the audience about your crap, your stuff you're working on?
Oh, that crap! There was like 4 references in the notes to Shane's crap. I didn't know which one we were on. Yep. So kicking butt with the Cloud OS stuff, Hyper-V System Center. Building hybrid clouds with flexible guest VM support. Woohoo! Really, I say all that to say, if you guys know anybody who's an expert at Hyper-V, System Center, the Windows Azure Pack, Cloud OS, if you will, I'm absolutely looking for some external people. Someone just left my team who will remain nameless. I have a spot to fill for an advanced engineer on that stuff. So if you know anybody or you want to jump into that, you're done with this SharePoint thing, you want to get out, give me a buzz.
Yeah, and is that up on the Rackspace site?
It probably is, but really just email me, shane.young@rackspace.com. There's a job description that has nothing to do with the actual job that I want you to do, so I'll send that to you if you actually want to apply. But
yeah, and I think the regular Rackspace page is what, like rackertalent.com, I think is the regular page for all the jobs.
Yeah, and then this one's like a senior Windows engineer. Let's try Racker Talent. Yeah, rackspace.com/talent, which then will redirect me to nothing.
Well done, marketing folks or HR folks.
There you go. Yeah, rackspace.com/talent.
Okay. So if you're not a Hyper-V guy and just want to see what else we got going on, rackspace.com/talent talks about all the other stuff we've got openings for. And there's a bunch of stuff, a lot of Windows stuff. I don't know if we have any SharePoint openings right now. Exchange, Link. I mean, we're doing it all. SQL. We've really kind of refocused our efforts on some of the Microsoft stuff.
Yeah, well, our Microsoft relationship is definitely reaching new heights. So I was out there in Redmond 2 weeks ago for a couple days. Then some other people from my team are out there this week. Again, we're really moving the ball forward. There's a couple of different Microsoft programs that we're Tier 1 in now, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, we're going to be Partner of the Year next year. I'm kind of guaranteeing it, so we'll see.
But that's well-trod territory, right? We've been Partner of the Year how many times now?
One, two, three, 4 times, which is more than any other hoster out there. So.
Yeah. So it's something that we're familiar with, and like I said, we've got a lot of stuff. That relationship got a little weak for a couple of years, but it's back on track now, and it's good stuff. So, but yeah, if you want to work on Hyper-V and play with that kind of stuff, drop Shane a line and let him know. Anything else we should know about what you guys are doing over there?
No, I mean, the last couple times I did the show, I've kind of told everyone about it. I think just good stuff. We got a lot of fun things. The JBOD arrays are pretty fun. We got storage down at 2 cents a gig. That one gets me excited. And JBOD, you know what JBOD stands for?
I have some guesses, but probably none of them are safe for work. Would you like to tell the kind folks what it really stands for?
Just a bunch of disk. It blew my mind when I found out that was its fancy JBOD arrays, or just a bunch of disk.
Disks, that makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah, this is not you and eBay, UpNay, or...
Yeah, so the JBOD stuff, for those of you that haven't played with it, if you guys have been doing the IT stuff as long as Shane and I have, you had this thing where you had RAID 5s and all the disks had to be exactly the same size, exactly the same brand, and exactly the same firmware and all this kind of stuff. All these really rigid things to have redundant high-speed storage, and as drives have gotten smarter and as servers and OSs have gotten smarter, that's really not necessary anymore. So this idea of JBOD is just take a bunch of disks, whatever they are, drop them together, pool them inside the OS, and the OS handles everything, handles the redundancy, handles the speed. And so the guy on your team, Phil, has done some amazing stuff with that.
Yeah, Phil's pretty phenomenal. He even speaks funny, and he's still able to do it.
So I get to meet Phil next week. I'm going to be in San Antonio, and Phil's going to be there. So I'll get to see that. That'll be a good time. I
want a selfie. I want to see, I want a comparison of size of the two of you to, Yeah, but so no, back to the JBODs and the tech that's in front of those, though. Microsoft has had that free software storage spaces.
Yep.
Which exposes all that as an SMB 3.0 file share and a scale-out file system. It's pretty cool stuff. I got it right. Ha.
You have no idea what any of those words mean, though. You're reading one of Phil's slides, don't you? Have it up in your...
Listen here. I am the chief technologist for all things Microsoft at Rackspace. If I say these are the words, they must be the words.
And doing a damn fine job, I can tell. So that's interesting, and I'll have to, now that I think about it, I'll have to talk to Phil about this. I got some new 4 terabyte drives for one of my servers at home, and I was going to tell this story last week, but we ran out of time. And hell, we're going to run out of time this week, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So I had a whole big collection of drives in the server at home. It's got all the pictures of my kids and all the DVD movies that I've ripped and all that kind of stuff. And it was like a terabyte drive, a terabyte and a half drive, a 2 terabyte drive. I mean, it was just a whole big mess of stuff. So 4 terabyte drives are pretty cheap now, so I bought 2 4 terabyte drives with the idea of collapsing all that onto one 4 terabyte drive and then mirroring it onto the second. So put the first 4 terabyte drive in, copied everything over, moved some stuff around, kind of because I don't have these partitions now. I've got this big open space. Everything was looking great. So I took all the drives out and I put the second 4 terabyte drive in to do a mirror. Sounds good so far. So go into the server, and it's running Windows Server 2012 R2, so it's got all this stuff. Go into Disk Management, right-click on the drive with all the data on it, and say Add Mirror. This box comes up, words, make dynamic disk, yes, finish. And in the background, there's like a dialog box up that's working and doing stuff. And in the background, before all this came up, I had one unallocated 4 terabyte drive and then one 4 terabyte drive with a 4 terabyte partition on it. Words, click. And then that screen in the back refreshed, and I had one unallocated 4 terabyte drive and then another unallocated 4 terabyte drive. So what it had asked me was, do you want me to destroy all of your data? And I said, hell yeah, it can happen. And so all of my data went poof. And so there was much swearing, and it's a good thing Snoopy wasn't in the room. I'd have probably said choice words at him. So I ended up getting some software and undeleting it all. Didn't lose anything, thank goodness. And I had all the drives anyway, so I could have put it all back together. But so I got it all restored. 4 terabyte drive, everything's there. I've got this other drive now that I want to mirror. Now, when I try to use the storage space of stuff and try to mirror it, it says it won't let me. It says that there are no drives available. And you can go into PowerShell and you can get all the statistics on the drives, and there's a bit that says available for fault tolerance or something, and that's set to false on all my drives now. So I'm confused because it was there before, because it was there long enough for me to destroy all of my precious data. But now that I've got my data back, it's not there. So I need to investigate that a little more.
So you've proven out reverse replication once before, so now you've done reverse replication at home just to confirm that.
I didn't do it the first time. I just cleaned it up the first time.
Oh, good.
So what happened after, how that kind of like how your life flashes before your eyes?
It was doing.
Yeah. So when I created the first disk, I made it a basic disk and I made a simple volume. Yep. And in order to be part of a fault tolerance set, that disk has to be a dynamic disk. And what that dialog box said was, "Hey dummy, this is a basic disk. Do you want me to convert it to a dynamic disk? And when I do that, it will destroy all your stuff." Now, I mostly read all that, but again, words. But the target for that I was going to make a mirror was also a basic disk. So in my head, that's what it was asking me. It was saying, "Hey, that empty disk, do you want me to?" And we see how that turned out.
Words. It gets you every time.
I get so excited about clicking next and OK. I just get all excited and I can't stop myself. It's the mouse finger just kind of goes by itself. I can't.
There's probably a joke about a Windows admin here that wouldn't be appropriate since we're all Windows folk here. But if it was a Linux show, there'd be some good jokes there.
Yep. So now I have to figure out there's a bit somewhere that's not letting me mirror those drives. So I can only assume that there's another huge data loss in my future before I get that drive mirrored. That's the only way this story works. So
absolutely. Do you have the stuff safe somewhere else, or is it really kind of playing with fire here?
I would like to tell you yes. So I have all of the original drives. So if these 4 terabyte drives explode again, which they're probably going to do before the end of this show, I will have everything. Now, we've uploaded some pictures in the last couple of months since I started this, so we'd have to go comb through OneDrive and Dropbox to get everything out of there. But there's not much risk for data loss yet. But of course, as the days go by.
Yeah. Well, Owen only turns 364 days old, a couple times in his life, so.
So that's another interesting story for those of you that are not friends of mine on Facebook, and really it's a pretty boring experience. But every month I've been putting a picture of my son with a Surface RT next to him, saying I'm 1 month old, I'm 2 months old, I'm 3 months old, and all that. So the day before he turned 1 year old last week, I put up a thing that said I'm 364 days old, thinking I'd be clever. Any of you who have children, especially little boys, they're a bit rambunctious. So if you look at this picture, and if you know the story, the picture will make perfect sense. The picture of him with that sign that says I'm 364 days old, he's like screaming. He's got this, yeah. So as soon as the camera clicked with him in this rebellious thing, he reached over and he smacked the tablet and knocked it down and shattered the screen on my fireplace. So if anybody wants to donate a Surface RT to the Todd Klindt taking pictures of his kid fund, I'll get you my address. So it's only the corner that's shattered, but it broke the touchscreen part, so like most of the touchscreen doesn't work anymore on the tablet. Yeah.
Do you get a sharded glass in your finger if you touch it?
Well, I assume so. I haven't touched that part because I'm not a complete idiot, but it broke the touch part all the way across the top. So it's just broken in the corner, but like the top half of the screen, the touch doesn't work.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's people that have shattered phones that use them. They blow my mind, right? Because every time I get near the thing, I end up with a piece of glass in my damn finger. I'm like, throw this away.
This one, this was when I broke my 920, and I've not touched that corner because it looks like it's just waiting to make me bleed.
Oh, it makes me sad.
Yep. All right, so.
30 minutes in here, we haven't talked about a single thing yet, so.
No, not a damn thing. but that's next. That is right on. Any minute now, we're going to talk about something valuable. I can feel it.
All right. Well, and then about the time you'll be like, and they got to wrap this show up.
Yeah, everybody's good. Yep. So in the chat room, they're talking about how I, cracked the screen on my RT and totaled it and all that. So I bought that RT last June at TechEd for $99. So while I mourn its passing, I think I more than got my money's worth out of that RT. But the other thing is I can't imagine that within the sound of my voice, there's not somebody who bought one of those RTs for $99 that isn't using it and doesn't want it. So if you've got one of those RTs just laying around annoying you, give me a shout.
I use mine as a skateboard now, just like that original video.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Throw it at animals when they come into your yard, that kind of stuff.
Stay off my lawn!
There you go. There you go. So you want to talk about some SharePoint? You got time for that?
Well, I mean, SharePoint, I've kind of forgotten all about that, so I'll kick back and you just let me know when that part's over.
All right. So I once again, I think I have it in last week's note. I wrote an article for the folks at Penton, the SharePoint Pro Mag folks, and it's all about using host name site collections. And that's something that we do at Rackspace. It's kind of the heart of multi-tenancy. It's this ability to have site collections that are different by name instead of path, all in the same web app. And that's something that, Shane and I have been doing the SharePoint thing for a long time, and it's something that SharePoint has had since 2003, 2007 for sure, but it has never worked with the damn. I mean, it's just been horrible. Just all kinds of stuff didn't work. Couldn't manage it, couldn't do anything with it. But now in 2013, it's actually not so bad. So I wrote an article for those folks at Penton about it, and it's gotten me a lot of comments. So I kind of wanted to talk about some of the tweets and emails and all that I've gotten.
Positive comments or just comments?
Well, I would say mostly positive. Nobody's called me out and told me I was a big dummy or anything. So,
that's good.
Very nice. Excuse me. So the first email that I got was from a friend of mine, somebody that we all know here, Hilton Giesenau, and I apologize, I think I just slaughtered his last name. He's a SharePoint MVP from Cape Town, South Africa, and he also does a SharePoint podcast. He does a show called The Moss Show, and the fact that it's got Moss in the name tells you how long it's been around. And you can go to themosshow.com and see all that. Shane, I think you and I did an episode of this. I think he recorded it like at an MVP summit 3 or 4 years ago.
A long time ago, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I just remember it was like right after breakfast, and we were sitting in the breakfast room doing all that. And then I've done one with him since then, and so he and I email all the time, bounce ideas off each other. But he read the article and had some questions about some stuff. But again, check out his show, themosshow.com. He does more of an interview style stuff, so his episodes aren't just me, or isn't just him blathering on like mine are me blathering on. But he's like, I think the last episode he had Andrew Connell on, he's had Victor on, he's had Susan Henley on. I mean, just all kinds of folks. So good stuff, wide variety of topics. But the things that he emailed me about is he had tried to implement some hostname site collections and had some issues with it. One of the first things he mentioned was the idea of the loopback detection, and that's something that we've all done battle with, and that is this idea that if a server process, or if a client process on a box talks to a server process on that same box, but does it with a name other than the box's name, the Windows security steps in and says, no suit for you. It's the LSA subsystem stops all that.
Is that still your most popular blog post ever?
It's right up there. It's one of my more popular ones. So that's an issue with SharePoint in general, because the name of all of your web front ends is probably not portal.contoso.com or mysite.contoso.com. So it's something that we've had to deal with since Microsoft sneakily snuck that into Windows 2003, whenever they did that, however many years ago. There are two ways to deal with that. There is the right way, and there's the way that Shane and I always deal with it. The right way is to go into the registry and flip a bit that says, I'm going to give you some whitelisted names, and then you go in and there is a registry key called back connections host name where you put all of those names in. So you would put in portal.contoso.com, mysite.contoso.com, team.contoso.com, all that, and put that on all of your servers. For me, that's worked about 40% of the time, and that's after reboots and swearing, about 40% of the time.
Yeah.
The other way, and the way that Shane and I have been dealing with it forever, is there's another registry key that you can set that just says, ignore the whole damn thing and let anybody in. And that registry key is disable loopback check. That's the way that we take care of it. That works 100% of the time immediately. Now, let me be clear. That is the wrong way to do this. You should do the back connection hostname part. It's not responsible of me to tell you otherwise. But that's not the way that I do it. So that was one of Hilton's things. He's like, well, if you create these hostname site collections, then by definition, every site collection has a different hostname, and if you're using this back connections hostname entry, you have to add that every time, or you start having access denied issues with search and stuff like that. And I said, yep, you do. There's 2 ways to handle that. Number 1, do it the wrong way and disable the loopback check, then everything works. Or number 2, you have to create these hostname site collections with PowerShell anyway. You can't create them in central admin. You can set registry entries with PowerShell. So easy peasy. Make a script that creates a site collection, and then in that same script, add that entry to the back connection hostnames thing. So he wasn't too impressed with that. I think he was hoping there was some other magic somewhere. But I mean, you do it once, you write it. Now it gets a little tricky if you have multiple servers in your farm. Then you need to do something, do like a get SP server, and then use PS remoting or something to put that entry in all of your servers. But again, it's like 5 lines of PowerShell. Not much to it.
Disable loopback check. Got it.
La 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 la. So the next thing that he mentioned was getting all of those host names in the host files on the server, because that's something else that you and I do all the time. Is we always put all of the web app addresses for all of the SharePoint web apps in the host file from all of the servers and point them to themselves. A couple of reasons we do it. One of them is for search, and one of them is just for troubleshooting. If you need to figure out where something's going on, you can RDP into a server. You're hitting that server and all that. So his second comment was, he does that too, but now this gets very complicated if you use hostname site collections. And I said, well, you're doing it all with PowerShell, and you can absolutely add entries to your host files with PowerShell. And that's the fix for that. Again, it complicates things, but that's, figure out the math once, and that's all there is to it. But then I also talked to him about search, because again, that's one of the reasons we do that with search, is to control where the crawlers crawl, because we don't want them going out hitting DNS, going through our load balancers and all that kind of stuff. So normally you set, portal.contoso.com on the crawler, you point it to whatever server you want, and that's the server that it crawls. But once you've got hostname site collections, that starts getting ugly. Now, for large environments that have thousands of hostname site collections, that's a pretty big host file. But ironically or unexpectedly, not a problem. Host files can have thousands of entries, and it doesn't hurt anything, apparently. And when I was first researching all this, the first place that I came across this was there are groups on the internet that curate these host files that block things like ad servers and malware servers and all that. And they have host files that you can download that are in the megabytes, dozens of megabytes, that have thousands and thousands of entries in them that you can drop on your Windows machine, and then it blocks all those things, so you can't, get hit with malware and stuff like that. So that kind of proved out that you can do that, and it would work. So that's an option. Put all the host name things in for that. But, and this is something I need to test out a little bit, starting with SharePoint 2010 and continuing in SharePoint 2013, there's a web app property in the property bag that you can set that says, for this web app, crawl this server. And then that's a place that your crawlers look when they're crawling that web app. They look in there, and if there's a server value in there or multiple server values in there, they crawl that server for that web app and any hostname site collections on that web app.
Now, are they automatically updating the host file themselves there, or are they doing it with code somewhere?
Well, so they're doing it in code. So let's take hostname site collections out of the mix for a second. Let's say we've only got portal.contoso.com. So search goes out. It in the background it enumerates all the looks in the entries for the web apps. It goes to that web app and it does a lookup for that value. And it says, oh, hey, there's that value here. And it says go to search 03 or whatever web front end you've set up. It says go to that one. And so it starts, it goes out and it hits that web service that tells what things have changed and all that. But it directs all those requests at that one server. And then that service replies back with, here are the things that you need to crawl. The crawler goes out and walks through them. But again, it only directs that traffic at that one server.
That's good, because if you remember back in the old days, it used to do all that. It did have similar behavior, but it did it all via a really poorly done entry in the host file that could donkify things even worse. So glad that they finally got the problem solved.
Yeah, so that was the SharePoint 2003 and 2007 days. And there were some funny instances where you could completely break your entire SharePoint farm by setting that. Doing it the right way would break everything. So now, when you introduce hostname site collection to that mix, the mechanism still works. So search goes out, it hits that portal.contoso.com, it says what's changed. Portal gives that list, but now that list has, toddrocks.contoso.com, Shane is a stinker.contoso.com, but it knows it's in that same web app, so it uses that same server or list of servers to crawl that. So I've talked to a couple of folks that are using it. Trevor Seward's one of them, and a couple other people. Everything seems to work. I haven't got an environment here that has all those servers that I can test it with, other than production environments, and I've been warned not to try it in production environments. And apparently the phrase "what could possibly go wrong" doesn't change any of that. But that's the way to fix that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. And seeing all this stuff is just what scares me about host name site collections, right? As you work through this list, because even if someone follows along and does all this, what happens when they win the lottery and they leave? How's the next guy follow along? I stand by my remarks that host name site collections are they're in beta still. They'll be the de facto standard next time, but right now all of you that are doing them are just really beta testing it for us in the next iteration of SharePoint.
Right, because what is the big motivation for host name site collections working in SharePoint? Shane, would you like to take a guess?
Moving things to Office 365?
Well, and just being Office 365. I mean, if you think about Office 365, that's how all that works. That's hostname site collections in the background. So, yeah, it's going to work because they need it for the product.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's getting there. It's manageable.
Well, I still stand by the fact that you have to provision all that stuff via PowerShell, right? If it was really the default, which they claim it is, it would be the thing that you did in Central Admin. I bet you $1 the next version it's the thing you do in Central Admin. Then I will finally accept that it's the way we should do things.
Then you will finally embrace them. Well, and so to your point, we talk about how your databases shouldn't get over 100 gig and all that. We've got all these SharePoint for Dummies, things that you shouldn't do, and host name site collections are definitely something that fall outside of the SharePoint for Dummies stuff. If you want to keep SharePoint simple and not have it, chew you up in the middle of the night, stay away from those.
I concur.
Yep. So another thing that for the host file stuff that I talked about with Hilton was we use a wildcard DNS record, and that solves a lot of our name resolution issues because Microsoft DNS and Bind and all that kind of stuff support a wildcard DNS record, which basically says when somebody goes to a domain's DNS server and says, what's the IP address for ShaneReallyStinks.contoso.com, the DNS server will look through the A records and the C records and all that, and if it doesn't find one, if there's a record for star, it will return that. So you can still create all your records that you need, but then there's basically just a none of the above record, and that handles all this. So if you've got a DNS zone that all of your host name site collections are going into, that wildcard DNS record that points to your web front end or your network device or whatever fixes all that.
Gotcha. And so then I guess in the same regard, you're using a wildcard SSL certificate as well, if you have to make this work.
Exactly, yeah. So if you want to put everything behind SSL, and you should, then yeah, wildcard SSL cert. One thing that we learned about that the hard way was the wildcard SSL cert only pertains to one level of the cert, so which is fine for SharePoint, but then when you get your apps involved, if you have if you do the subdomain thing, so you're doing apps.whatever, each one of your apps has its own entry. You have to have two wildcard certs for that, and that was. I remember the first time we dealt with that, we didn't expect that to be the case.
Well, and hopefully, not that we're going to get off on that tangent, right? But you should be doing the contosoapps.com
yes.
and then running all your apps there instead of doing apps.contoso.com and then doing them as a sub of that.
Yes. Yes.
But that's a security talk for another day, I guess.
Yes, and one that I'm not adequately skilled to chat about. The cross-site scripting and all that, I don't know.
I know these words, and then these words that say I know these words, and that's about it.
And this sentence to explain them. That's yep, that is it. And then, so the other thing I told him was if you've got Microsoft DNS, you could also script DNS records in PowerShell. So your PowerShell script could create your site collection, put your entry in the back connection hostname list, update DNS. That's all in there now. One thing that he brought up that was a legitimate thing that I did not have an answer for was BI and SPNs. So kind of the only, so this goes back to an SPN, a service principal name, It's our old buddy Kerberos and the double hop problem, and we've talked a lot about that. But if you've got every one of your URLs using a different host name, then you have to make sure all your SPN's set up correctly and everything references back, and that whole thing just gets really complicated. The only shining part about that is with SharePoint 2013, a lot of that stuff uses claims in the background, and that gets us out of some of that SPN stuff, but not entirely.
Yeah, and Excel added that special attribute where it can fake claims, and yeah, that's I guess I haven't had anyone really push the try and do host name site collections and Kerberos. No one's ever brought that scenario up in like the real world. So
yeah, and for the environments that I'm using it on, we're not doing any BI stuff, so I hadn't had a need to think through it myself, but that was something I hadn't thought about. And then the last one that you brought up was for if you're using it for internal stuff. If you're pushing out a group policy that puts your company's intranet in the trusted or local intranet zone for all of your IE folks, having different host names for all these site collections complicates that as well. And I'm like, well, sounds like another job for PowerShell to update that GPO. So the idea behind, or have a wildcard. So the idea behind that is, you say if you've got a SharePoint site at portal.contoso.com, you put that in your local intranet zone, then people don't have to log in and all that kind of stuff, and everything's trusted and everything just works well. But then if you've got another one that's something else.contoso.com, depending on how you set up your IE settings, it's not going to fall in there. Like Lori says in the chat room, you can use a wildcard for that. I do that, but I think there are some security folks that don't like that. I am not one of them.
Security people don't like anything. Let's just be honest.
They hate fun. They hate stuff that works. If things work, they feel like they're not doing their jobs.
I bet they hate Snoopy too.
Oh, nobody can hate Snoopy, and for sure can't hate his brother Frank. That's.
Now, Ingbe, there's somebody I can get behind. One.
So thanks to Hilton for all that, because that was some good stuff, and I'll probably, like the search thing and all that, I'll address that and maybe have a blog post, a follow-up or something, because that was some good stuff. And then Michael Bunyan asked me on Twitter, and I've lost his Twitter name, I should have put it in my notes. He and I had a conversation today about hostname site collections, and his question was, can you have multiple site collections under the same hostname site collection? That was the look that I had. You guys can't see Shane. I can see him when he's not talking. But kind of that curious dog look.
Aww.
So the answer to that is yes, because your hostname site collections will honor the same managed paths that your web app has. So if you've got your default managed path for sites and all that kind of stuff, when you create a hostname site collection, you can also create more site collections with that hostname /sites/ whatever. So he and I kind of talked through that, but that was a good question too, one that I should have addressed in my post.
Very cool, yeah.
So, all right, so we're at a mere 48 minutes. Shane, you wanted to talk a little bit about your Microsoft band.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering if, since we are at a mere 48 minutes, if I should roll all those topics into the next time around and...
Yep, since you're going to be hosting. All right, so that folks, that was a teaser. If you want to hear about Shane's exciting adventure with his band, and we'll table this one for next time too. Shane's adventure with a car molesting him. That is also a good story that we don't have time for tonight. But next week, Shane will tell you the story about how he was molested by a car, and how he walked away feeling dirty and ashamed.
The car molesting story, that one's got a deep personal spot. But the band, I just kind of want to walk through and really, now they've had it for about a month. When do I actually use it versus when do I not use it? And I think there's some interesting lessons learned and all there. Because at the end of the day, I still carry the old Fitbit too. So.
Interesting. Well, there's no chance that I will watch the Netcast that you do, but if I was going to, I'd be very interested in hearing why you still carry your Fitbit, because I have mine too. It in no way impacts anything that I do during the day, but I've got it. It's right here. Oh, it's right here. So
I need 1,260 more steps. I get 10,000 at least every day. I make it a point.
I don't even come close, but mine's got the time on it, which is really handy. So
I turn the time off. I just need the steps.
So one of Shane's strengths is competitive, just so you all know. So we'll put that in the notes for next week. One thing that I did want to mention before we lose everybody is we're winding down on Lori's birthday charity drive. So a recap for that. 5 years ago or so, when my first birthday happened after this Netcast started, so this thing started in March or April or something, and that following January, Lori and Dan Usher got together with some other folks that were in the chat room and people like that and said, we want to do something cool for Todd for his birthday, so I think we should donate a bunch of money to charity. Because I don't do it so much anymore because I don't like to be preachy, but I used to talk about donating to charity and that kind of stuff. And so now's a good time of year to talk about that. But Lori's putting a thing together. She would like you to get a hold of her if you'd like to be a part of that. So you can go to pointgowan.com/TKCharity, and that is Point and then Lori's last name, GOWIN.com/TKCharity. The URL is going to be across the bottom here, and it'll be in the show notes on my blog as well. So just shoot her an email, fill out that thing, and she'll get a hold of you and tell you what all you guys are doing this year. But it's a really cool thing. I've talked about it in previous blog posts or netcasts, but super cool. And we're not asking that you give to any specific charities. It's not anything that does me any good. Local charities is all, but just like to have the conversation. Now's a good time. I feel like I've been very fortunate, so I like to share the love to some other folks. So there's that. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, Shane, and this is something that I blame you for a month or so now. So part of the whole how I make the sausage thing is a bunch of these files, the text file that describes all this and all the video files are in Dropbox. And I have a folder in Dropbox for netcasts, and then I've got a PowerShell script that creates a folder for each netcast and creates all the files and everything. Very elegant, very beautiful. But when I get done with the netcast to get everything up and going, I go to another computer that's also syncing with Dropbox and remove that folder so it's not syncing to all my machines because it's a couple gigs every week. So a month or so ago, you and Jonathan did one of these netcasts, and it was the one called Live from Cincinnati or something unimaginative like that. And when I got done editing and all that, went to button it all up, I couldn't delete the folder. So there was, the gig video file and all the stuff I rendered, couldn't delete the folder. So I told Dropbox to stop syncing it, couldn't delete the folder. And when I would try to delete the folder, Windows would give me an error saying that the folder couldn't be found, except it was right there. I could point at it, but Windows wouldn't delete it.
I see you.
You're right there. Stop taunting me. And it wasn't on any of my machines. It was just the one machine, my Surface Pro 2, that I do all this stuff with. And so for weeks, I tried to get this thing deleted. I would quit syncing that with Dropbox and try to delete it. Nothing would do. So finally today, I went back in the Wayback Machine and figured out a way to delete this. So I kind of wanted to talk about how to delete a file or folder that you can't delete because Shane has screwed your system up. So go ahead.
Nope.
Something in your defense?
Nope. The chat room is defending me. There's a wonderful picture of you saying dumb things in the chat room now, so I'm good.
Is there only one? They're slacking if there's only one.
There's a whole new meme. I mean, it's going to be the hottest thing on the internet tomorrow.
That's awesome. I'm going to put a link to that. Lori, throw a link to that into the... I'm going to put that out there. That's awesome. So for those of you that are listening to the MP3, there'll be a link to it in the show notes. I'll put it in the video too. That's awesome. But so what I ended up doing, and this is something that I hadn't done for 100 years, but went out to a command prompt, admin mode command prompt, went to the folder that contained the folder I couldn't delete. So not the folder that I couldn't delete, but its parent, and did a dir/x. And if you think about 100 years ago when we had computers that were driven by coal and steam, and they couldn't have long file names. They all had the 8.3 file names.
Yep.
All right. So what dir/x does is it gives you that 8.3 file name. Because in the background, unless you go and do some stuff to disable it, every file and folder has its super long name, and then in the background, it has an 8.3 file name also for things that are too stupid for the long file names. So the dir/x gives you the 8.3 file name, and then I deleted the 8.3 file name, and that worked. So apparently what had happened is somehow when my PowerShell script created it and I copied stuff over, a special character of some sort got into that name, and when Windows tried to delete it, it didn't put that special character in, said it couldn't find the thing. And so the dir/x thing worked like a champ.
Amazing. Windows can create things with characters it can't use, but it can never uncreate those things.
Yep. So then after I deleted it, because I didn't expect it to work, because I've tried a whole bunch of things, I'm like, well, damn it, now I wish I'd have tried like, RMDIR asterisk or tab completing it in PowerShell, just a bunch of stuff. But if you have an undeletable file or folder, try dir/x, and then don't let Shane near your stuff anymore.
Folks, this lesson is brought to you from 1995. Thanks, Todd.
Yes, that tip is as relevant now as it was 27 years ago. All right, and then, so I've already talked about this a little bit, that next week I'm going to be in San Antonio doing some stuff at the mothership and going to be busy on Monday night, and so Shane is going to be taking over the helm. He's going to tell you how he was molested by a car. He's going to tell you...
I'm going to dance a little.
Yep, they can't see you. There
now
you
they can't come making noise.
I just unplugged you from my headphones. Let me plug that back in.
I am... Man, I think I'm going to get Scuba on here. I'm going to have some guests.
You should do that. You should do that.
Scuba walked by wrapped in a blanket so no one would see him because he wasn't wearing a shirt, because apparently shirts are optional at my house. I don't know.
It's a weird vibe there. I can't put my finger. And Scuba just, I don't know. That boy's not right. I mean, no other way to say it.
Yeah.
So that's all the topics, but again, Shane will be taking the helm next week. So my condolences. I apologize to everybody. It's just how it goes. So shameless self-promotion, the last bit that we got going on here. Shane and I will be getting the band back together in February. We're going to SPTechCon in Austin. You can go to sptechcon.com and find out all about that. We're doing, 3 sessions, something like that?
3 or 4, yeah. They were handing them out like candy.
Yep. We work cheap, so they give us lots of sessions. So I forget what sessions we're doing. We're doing a couple on upgrade, and I forget.
Admin skills.
Yeah, motorcycle repair, something like that. I forget.
Yep. Command prompt, how to use the /x.
Yes. 27 command prompt tricks you'd forgotten. So PowerShell, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lori. At some point, Lori, I'm going to put this in my notes so that it's in there as I copy it. So you'll be able to see all of our shenanigans live. Lori will be there. She's doing some sessions. Laura Rogers will be there. She's in the chat room. They are co-presenting a session.
Ooh.
So that will be very exciting. Many people killed. And just all kinds of good stuff there. It's a great little boutique conference. You get a lot of FaceTime with the presenters and all that. It's a good time. And we've done like 14 of these, 15 of these. I forget even.
Yeah, everyone. I think this should be an odd number, right? So this will probably be 15.
Yeah, so I think it's the 8th year, the first one of the 8th year. Yep, we have done them all. So that's pretty cool. So that's the 8th through the 11th. And then I am going to London in April. So without Shane, but Laura and Lori and I and many other skilled and fine speakers will be at the SharePoint Evolutions Conference in London. And that's April 20 through the 22nd.
I'm kind of jealous. Not really of like you guys going to a conference, but we'll always have Paris. I don't want to hear about you always having London with them. That's a little concerned.
Yes, we should go back to Paris. What do you say? You got some miles you got to get for your Delta status.
I think you got a better chance if we'll go to Disney World, buddy. We'll pack the kids up and see Disney.
Yep. Sometime, and Shane can tell you about next week. Shane and I nearly lost our lives in Paris, and it was a good time.
I almost killed someone too. I mean, let's just be honest. Oh.
It was pretty rough. So thanks to everybody. This one has gone way over, and I'll keep the stream going for a while. We'll stay in the chat room. But thanks to Shane for coming along this week. Say something to the crowd.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's always a lot of fun to do these shows with Todd. It's much more fun next week when I do it by myself, but I realize I have to occasionally do these ones with Todd to keep up the doing them by myself bit. So Thanks for having me.
Won't have me hogging the camera and all that. But let me know how this all worked, because if it works out well, then I'll be bringing another guest in, bringing other people, hopefully smarter, funnier people than Shane.
Boo.
But so yeah, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Shane. Like I said, I'll be gone next week for 226, but I should be back the next week, and we'll take it from there. So thanks everybody. As always, if you've got any kind of comments, you can hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt or email me at todd.klindt@rackspace.com. Thanks everybody.